Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for all the craziness earlier this afternoon. We're going to get started on our second set of breakout sessions. So welcome to the session. I'm the moderator, Heather Leditsky. I have a few housekeeping items to share with you. This session is going to have two mini presentations. Each session will run for 15 minutes, and then we'll have a 5-minute Q&A. We ask that you keep your microphone on mute until you need to ask a question. You can ask your questions at any time by entering them into the chat panel. We will be saving all questions till the end of each presentation. And if there is time after both presentations, we'll open the floor up for more Q&A. After this session, please take a moment to provide feedback for each of our session presenters by filling out their respective session evaluation forms. Those are available on the conference portal. So our first presentation is going to be quickly transitioning from in-person events to virtual events. And your presenter is Gregor Lingben. Take it away.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to go ahead and spotlight myself here. I'll go ahead and switch to my slides. So thank you everyone for joining me today. Like she said, I'm Gregor Langbein from the University of Michigan, the end user computing manager for our operations department there. And when the pandemic hit, I basically became the Zoom person, doing all of our normal in-person events online. So our agenda, we'll go through some Zoom meeting features first, talk about early transitioning, tips for engagement, and then questions at the end. So today's Zoom meeting, everybody's video and audio is muted right when you come in. You do have the option to turn that on and off. There's gallery view and speaker view. So today I would suggest, at least for my portion, viewing in speaker view so you can see my slides in the background. Chat's enabled. You can also raise your hand, and the closed caption is enabled. So gallery view and speaker view, it's in the top right corner. If you click on view, you can change between the two. Chat, open up the chat using the chat button in the bottom of your screen, and then you can say who you want to chat to. This picture here is actually from a webinar, but yeah, just choose to chat with everyone. The live transcript, you can click the live transcript CC button on the bottom to turn on and off your transcript so you can see what I am saying. And then for support, use the chat if you have any issues, or email our team support group here and library room support at umich.edu. So the reason I did that is because that was the first thing we had to do, was basically teach our whole library. We have 500 faculty and staff how to use Zoom during our big meetings. So it was a brand new tool. We were using BlueJeans before, and BlueJeans was just not cutting it for us. It was slow. You really couldn't do more than 15 people in a meeting at one time. So each of our meetings still, we go through all of those, like especially our big all staff meetings or presentations with alumni or people outside the university that we're not really sure how well they know Zoom. We'll go through all that stuff just to show them the buttons and where it's at, because new technology, new methods of meeting takes some getting used to. And then it also helps set expectations for the meeting at the beginning. You know, like, should people stay on mute the whole time, or should people keep their cameras off? Is this more of a presentation style? Is this more of an interactive style meeting? So telling people at the beginning, like, this is what we're expecting out of this meeting, can really help. And then just go through the tools that you're going to utilize. Are you going to utilize the chat? Are you going to acknowledge people when they raise their hand? Do you want them to do it like physically raise their hand, turn their camera on and raise their hand? Or do you want them to do it digitally through the Zoom raise hand tool? And then also with Q&A as well, if you're doing a webinar, if you want people to submit questions in the Q&A or in the chat, that's also really helpful. And then sometimes there's really no interaction. We'll have weekly COVID briefings from our president, and that's basically, you can ask a question, that's it. You can't see anyone else's question, you can't upvote questions. So it's good to like kind of lay that baseline out. So webinars and meetings in Zoom, it's good to know which one you want to use for what audience you're going to. So webinars gives you as the presenter, as the host, way more control. If you're doing public events where like you're gonna put a Zoom link in a public web page or promote it on Facebook, use a webinar because you can keep everyone's cameras off. You're not going to get quote unquote Zoom bombed. You can quickly kick people out of the meeting if they're causing a ruckus. But the limitation on that is interaction. If somebody wants to come on camera, you got to promote them to a panelist. You got to hover over their name and allow them to talk. And that will work fine a lot of the times. In meetings, you get a lot more interactivity. Definitely don't want to share those links publicly. But like I said, you can get interaction between your colleagues. So we usually reserve those for department level meetings, staff meetings, and webinars we'll use for our big all staff meetings. Also, the Zoom limitations are webinars, you can fit up to 1,000 people. And we do have special licenses where we can go up to 10,000. So that's like the all university wide meetings. And Zoom meetings limit you to 300. So virtual events take more planning and trust than say an in-person event. We have a gallery where we put on in-person events, or we used to. We'll kick back up in winter probably. And so all the people involved, we get there 30 minutes early. We could run through everything. Something goes wrong, you can make eye contact with the person on stage. You can fix things. You can literally run to the stage. With Zoom, I can't do that. I can't run to a presenter's house real quick and fix their audio issues for them. So getting the bottom one here, getting there early is really important. We try and do at least 15 minutes early. My team will get to the meeting 30 minutes early so we can get everything all set up. When webinars in Zoom have a practice mode, so when you're setting up your webinar, always turn the practice mode on, because there's a little button at the top that says go live. And then you can click that and you can go live with your webinar. Everyone will come in. So that allows you and your panelists to get all set up beforehand and run through everything. And meetings, you can just use a waiting room, kind of like what was happening on this one. We all got in there early, tested everything out, made sure it was working. Then we opened up the waiting room and everyone came in. So I'm also going to show you an example of a run a show. So this is a real lifesaver, and it really makes your audience think that you know what you're doing. If you kind of break things out by literally minutes. So here we've got, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit. So 403 to 406, I can't see that, there we go. I give my technology overview. And then 406 to 410, Yvonne takes over, and there's her script there. So everyone involved in the meeting knows exactly what is going on and when. And that has been really, really helpful for us. And it just really cuts down on that transition time, keeps people engaged. Like if you say, oh, just a minute, we'll be right back. People are going to leave, go grab water, and then they'll miss the start of your next presentation. So if you can keep it nice and concise, then you don't run your meeting over. You also leave plenty of times for questions, because those are our biggest issues, is presentations running long and not leaving time for questions. And then people feel like, well, why do I even bother coming if no one's even going to look at my questions? And then the next one is use a back channel communication. So use something outside of Zoom, like Google Chat, Slack. Oftentimes I'll have Google Chat up on my phone, and I can text back and forth with everyone in the meeting, the meeting organizers, presenters, let them know if there's an issue going on, or like we can hear an echo with you, and then you're not accidentally chatting that to everyone in your meeting. All right, so tips to increase engagement. Just allowing your attendees to interact. And I have noticed that allowing for anonymous feedback, especially in webinars with Q&A, you get a lot more questions, especially when it comes to sensitive topics like returning to work. People feel scared about going back with COVID still running rampant everywhere, even if they're vaccinated, and they don't feel comfortable putting their name on that question. So the president or the dean of the library can see who asked it. So I have noticed that you'll get a lot more engagement if you can allow anonymous questions. Encourage presenters to turn on their video camera. This was more of an issue at the beginning, but if it's just somebody talking and you can't see them, audiences are going to be less engaged with the content that they're hearing. Be mindful of low bandwidth users. So if somebody's on a cell phone or somebody just kind of lives out in the country and all they have is a DSL connection, if everybody has their video camera on, the presenter is their video quality is going to be matched with everyone else. So if everyone else can turn off their camera while the presenter is talking, you can conserve bandwidth and make for a better experience for those low bandwidth users. And you can also remind them that dial-in users, they can still raise their hand. There's a code that they can type on their phone that they have to listen to every time they dial in. Avoid moving backgrounds. So if you use those Zoom built-in backgrounds, like the one with the beach and the waves, that's going to cause some lag for your low bandwidth users. And then you can also control the attendees' view. So like right now, I've spotlighted myself so that if somebody accidentally makes a noise in the background, the camera is not going to flip over to them. It's going to stay on me until I remove my spotlight. And when you're in webinars, you can also control between gallery view and speaker view who can see what. So when we have a presenter, we'll switch to speaker view. Then when it's time for Q&A and a bunch of different people are answering questions, we'll switch it to gallery view so that everyone can see everyone trying to answer. And then lastly is that Zoom pause, where if you ask, anyone have any questions? All right, we'll move on. That's not enough time for somebody to chat their question in or find their start video button, find their unmute, and come on and ask a question. So give that a good 10 seconds, count it out in your head, maybe play some background music while it's going, but just make sure you give that pause for people to engage. So we usually always take a team approach. My team that I'm on, we usually provide the behind the scenes focus for this stuff. So I like to think of like Conan O'Brien and Andy Richter, or Dave Letterman and Paul, or Jimmy and Steve, where you have the presenter on, and just like Heather came on, she showed me the 3 minutes. So that means I've got 3 minutes left in my presentation. And that person in the background can also be monitoring the chat. They can come and interrupt, be like, hey, Gregor, we've got a question from here. They can monitor the Q&A, monitor the raise hands. Other things you can do is at the beginning of your meeting, you can play some soft music. I like the Animal Crossing songs. They are pretty nice and soft. And this welcomes new attendees as they join in. It tests their sound. They know your sound is working. You can come on and say, welcome everyone to our meeting. You're assuring them that they're in the right place. Because that was a big thing we had at first, was clicking the wrong meeting links. Make things as accessible as possible. So use a cart provider. I forget what that means, but it's basically a person typing what you're saying out during the meeting, and it's more accurate than the Zoom ones, than the Zoom built-in live transcript. And but it is costly. So if you're running a big meeting, you might want to consider doing that. And then use contrasting colors and presentation formats like this one. And I'll put a link to it in the chat. So if you want to make a copy of it, you're more than welcome to. Probably change the color scheme for your university or your organization. But keeping those contrasting colors helps for people with color blindness. And then always explore Zoom's ever-changing functionality. Every month there's new stuff. This picture here is from the advanced tab in the share screen. PowerPoint as a virtual background came out 3 months ago. Music or computer sound only came out 2 months ago. So just explore around that. And then also the Zoom release notes. You can go there and read what they update every month. And that is all I have for you today. So I thank you very much for listening, and I'll pass it on to our next presenter. Thank you.